Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the King and Pocket Aces, brought to you by Rotoballer Radio and Rotoballer.com. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Aniano, Pocket Aces, as they say, and joining me, as he always does, the King of Fantasy Sports, Mr. Scott Engel. Scott, episode 4 here of the King and Pocket Aces show. How you doing today, my friend?
Yes, we're beginning March, and it's March Madness fantasy style. We got baseball, off-season football, basketball, NASCAR. We got everything going on. I'm sure you're playing your brackets, etc. So we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, head over to rotoballer.com for all of it. DFS season long. Scott named all the sports we cover there. Sign up for that MLB premium package, the NASCAR premium package. The baseball one comes with the draft guide. Sign up for all of the great content. Use the promo code KING, letting them know Scott sent you, or the code ACES, letting them know Anthony sent you, and get with rotoballer.com. And thanks for watching here on Rotoballer YouTube or wherever you stream your podcasts and Rotoballer Radio. Lot to cover today. We'll start with some football news. Washington football team, I think a little bit of a surprise, not bringing back Alex Smith, Scott. Big cap hit. They let him go. They saved themselves a little bit of money. But let's start on the Washington side of this. I mean, is Tyler Heinicke the quarterback now of the Washington football team? Or do you see them going elsewhere?
I know people are big on Heinicke because he had a good playoff game. But how many times?
Game. Yeah, remember that. Game. Not even plural, right?
I said game, right?
Yes.
And you even though that's impressive, you don't become a solid NFL starting quarterback by one game, whether it's a playoff game or not. There was really no film on him before that. And it's really different when you start the season as the guy. Now, I'm not saying he can't compete for it, but Washington can't go into camp with just him as the only guy there. When the teams watch film on him, especially in the division, and the coordinators study film, there's going to be a lot to expose. You know, if this team wants to maintain some respectability here, they need to make a move at quarterback. They have room under the salary cap. They don't draft until 19th, so maybe Mac Jones falls to them. But you know, this is a team that should make a significant play for Deshaun Watson. Or if the Jets are going to trade Sam Darnold, they have to be in on that. They can't just go in with Heinicke based in on one playoff game. I don't care how good he looked that he battled Brady, etc. You know, the kid really doesn't have much of a pedigree. He doesn't have any experience. You just can't throw him into that regular season fire and expect him to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And you know, the ramifications here in Washington, if they don't bring somebody...
Will you stop using big words on me?
I apologize. Every now and then I try to sound intelligent. But if they go with Heinicke, I mean, what does that do for a Terry McLaurin value? In my opinion, it plummets. Okay, the running game with Gibson, that whole offense potentially falls apart in Washington if you don't have an established quarterback. And that's the situation we're maybe looking at in Washington. The free agent pool is not deep. You know, you mentioned Deshaun Watson, maybe Sam Darnold. Okay, Jameis Winston looks like he's going to go back to New Orleans. Even though they have about, $33 million in cap space, maybe more after then if they officially release Alex Smith, that's fine and dandy. But you better have a plan when you release Alex Smith. You are the division winners. A team with a strong defense, with some skilled talent there. Logan Thomas developed at tight end. So there were players who can move the chains on offense without an established quarterback there. And not a great draft pick, right? I mean, you're potentially looking at 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10. Mac Jones might not be there at 19 for you. So it's going to be interesting to me to see where Washington goes. You said it. You can't go into camp with Tyler Heinicke as the number one guy.
Choking on something you said. You called them division winners.
Well, they were 7-9, but they were division winners.
So?
That's how bad that division is, Scott.
And the other thing you said, Terry McLaurin takes a hit. Terry McLaurin played well no matter who was at quarterback. He played well with Dwayne Haskins. So I'm not worried about Terry McLaurin. In fact, I think they need to beef up the receiving core around him. Logan Thomas was a nice find. Yeah, he actually was a very startable, say, top 7 fantasy tight end down the stretch last year. Alex Smith showed he can still win. That he can still win.
Well, that's why this doesn't make sense.
But
what's plan B? And that's what Washington needs to
It was
us.
the financial move. He had come out in the media and said that the organization, been looking to get rid of him for a while. And obviously he's not a Ron Rivera guy either. It's a great story, but I think, he's going to have to end up somewhere else. Maybe he ends up in New England. Maybe Cam Newton's end up in Washington, but we're hearing Cam Newton's probably going to end up back in New England. The story has yet to be written. I don't think that they can go with Heineke just alone. They have to have somebody battle for the job with him.
Now, is it Kyle Allen, who was a Ron Rivera guy, was brought to Washington?
They do like Kyle Allen.
And he got hurt.
We saw him play extensively. He's like an updated version of John Kitna. Like, you admire him because he's got good football IQ, but he just doesn't have enough talent to consistently compete. So that might end up being the quarterback battle. And that's
less than inspiring. We'll just say that,
which I don't like, but I'm still not worried about Terry McLaurin.
Now, as far as Alex Smith goes, great story, comeback player of the year, all of that leads Washington to the postseason. Okay. Now, my question is, does he get another starting job? Is he a caretaker? Does he become a slightly younger Ryan Fitzpatrick type of quarterback to caretaker type of quarterback for the remainder of his career? Because let's be honest, Alex Smith was a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, a team that, run first, caretaker type of player at the position.
Yeah, I could see it, or maybe, he goes somewhere like, well, Chicago already has Foles, but I don't think Fitzpatrick, Ryan Fitzpatrick could end up going to Washington. He wants to start somewhere. That would make a lot of sense, actually. And then Alex Smith could go to Miami and kind of tutor Tua, which Fitzpatrick really didn't want to do, but maybe Alex Smith would be okay with doing and stepping in if Tua isn't ready. So, there might be a few opportunities. If another quarterback gets hurt or something like that, he could end up playing. He could end up backing up somewhere. Like, it'd be weird, but San Francisco has some good backups. Like Mullins is actually a pretty good backup. Yeah. So I could
see him going somewhere with one of these teams that draft a rookie, right? I could see him.
Jacksonville.
Okay, if they move on from Minshew. You could see him with the Jets if the Jets move on from Sam Darnold and make a trade.
I'd rather have him than Flacco.
Right, exactly. A more useful backup quarterback. If Carolina makes a move and unloads Teddy Bridgewater and drafts a quarterback, now Alex Smith is the perfect bridge there as well. So he's a bridge option potentially who eventually transitions into a backup role. Okay, it is apparent Washington didn't plan on using him this year, but the plan fell apart, and now they're going to be in a position. It's going to be interesting to see if they try to move up in the draft. Okay,
it's really only going to be a concern on 2 quarterback leagues. We're spending too much time talking about Alex Smith as much as I love you. We'll have fantasy baseball coming up a little later.
Listen, comeback player of the year, great story and news because now
this is a fantasy show.
The defending NFC champions legitimately don't have a starting quarterback in the NFL. That's why it's important. Hate to tell you. But speaking of quarterbacks and drama.
NFC champions don't have a quarterback. What?
The NFC East champions don't have an NFL quality quarterback. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, listen, you're in a bad mood today. And I know why you're in a bad mood. Because I'm going to be asking you about the fact that your Seattle Seahawks are actually considering potentially trading Russell Wilson. So I'm going to just say, what do you think about either Seattle thinking of trading him or the fact that Russell Wilson is actually contemplating heading out of Seattle? Scott, this is a worst-case scenario for you and any other Seahawk fan.
I think you're overselling a little bit there.
No.
Yeah, you are, because I've studied this situation deeply.
You studied it. You haven't studied since 7th grade.
I studied it 3 hours before this show, all right? I didn't study much in the 7th grade.
No, I didn't think so.
But if you say that Seattle's looking to trade him, then there's many layers to this. That's not true, number one. The Seahawks have not come out to anybody. In fact, NFL insiders have spoken to the organization and said they're not looking to trade him. It's actually Wilson's camp who has raised the possibility. The team has said nothing publicly, and they haven't indicated anything privately that they want to get rid of him. Right? It's a power play with Wilson wanting to have more of a say. You know, everybody's read about it. Here's the most important factors to me why I don't think he'll be traded this season. Okay? Number one, there's a $39 million cap hit if they trade him. There's no way that they can get rid of him, and they still have issues around whoever they would bring in around him, such as offensive line, other salary issues they have. They can't keep 2 of their top defensive line and Reed and Dunlap. Do they retain Shaq Griffin? Do they retain KJ Wright? If they were to trade Wilson, they'd trade $39 million cap hit, and that would hamstring even more with the moves around them. So that's a huge hurdle, number one. Secondly, he listed 4 teams, right, that he'd be willing to get traded to. And let me say something here first. Jake Heaps of ESPN Seattle is Wilson's personal quarterback coach. And he's very close with him. He was texting him during the Super Bowl when he was kind of upset about, watching Brady and Mahomes. And he said, Russell's not looking to get out of Seattle. He'd like to stay there, fix things, and retire there. This is sort of he wants to improve things. He doesn't want out. But I think when you read everything, it's kind of a passive-aggressive ultimatum where it's like, okay, let's try and improve things. Give me more. If I don't, then I'm open to getting traded. From the other side, the Seahawks have not indicated they want to trade him whatsoever. So everybody likes to have fun with rumors and coming up with trades. And here's the other issues. First big thing was the salary cap hit. The second big thing, look at the 4 teams that they mentioned. If you're going to trade Russell Wilson, you need to get at least a respectable quarterback in return. Okay? And more than that, because Pete Carroll is not about, at 69 years old, to get into rebuilding mode. So he wants to get a quarterback back that can help him win. Russell Wilson mentioned the Bears. The Bears have no one and nothing to offer. Okay? Nobody that can trade to the Seahawks and not high enough a draft pick. The Saints. You can't tell me that Pete Carroll is going to accept Taysom Hill back in return for Russell Wilson. It's not happening. Okay? Number 3, they're not taking Derek Carr back either. Okay? Because Derek Carr hasn't proven he can win anything. It's very hard to get a franchise quarterback in the NFL. The one team that can give him, as he mentioned, in a trade, if the return, or the Seahawks might say, okay, we'll take that quarterback back, is Dallas. But, again, the Seahawks take a $39 million cap hit, and they would have to pay on Dak on top of it. As John Clayton of ESPN Seattle also noted, that'd be investing $65 million a year about in the quarterback position. It's not affordable, okay? Those 4 teams, even though they're on his list, can't do it. Now, second off, he has a no-trade clause. That's another thing you have to consider. And the only team that I could see that could trade for him this year is the New York Jets. And here's why. I mentioned the cap hit. Seattle will get the number 2 pick back in the NFL draft. They could have a quarterback on the rookie contract. Plus, they could ask for some personnel in return. The Jets are the only team in position really to make that kind of offer where they have so much salary cap room and they can offer something back like a number 2 pick. You think Miami too, but I don't think the Seahawks want Tua. He's not proven enough. If there's somebody they like in the draft, they can make the trade with the Jets. Plus, he talks about his legacy and, wanting to win more Super Bowls and being maybe in a bigger media market. He goes to New York and he turns around the Jets, who haven't had a star quarterback since Namath. He become iconic. But, the Jets aren't one of his 4 teams. So what I think what happens is that he stays in Seattle. A lot of people like Warren Moon have said they expect him to stay this year. The scenario that nobody's considering is that they work things out. And then if it doesn't work out next year, a lot of these situations change next year. Less of a cap hit, etc. Quarterback situations change around the league, etc. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen next year. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. Personally, as a fan, I don't want to see it happen. I want to see him retire as a Seahawk, but that's not what I'm supposed to analyze on this show. I don't think he gets traded this year. I think it happens next year. I think he's already said he wants more of a say. They let him personally sign off on the new offensive coordinator, and that's a sign that they're trying to work things out with him. Fantasy-wise, I think it's going to be a different offense where he's still going to take his shots, but they're going to be more high percentage shots. So he'll still be a top 5 fantasy quarterback. And thanks for letting me go on about it. I could probably talk for another 2 hours about it, but I don't see it happening this year. And any Bears, Saints, or Raiders fan who tries to throw at us, we'll give you Foles, we'll give you Hill, or we'll give you Carr. That's not happening. Stop fantasizing. It's not happening. As for Dallas just doesn't. It doesn't work out financially. So, and the Cowboys have also said that they're committed to keeping Dak Prescott.
Current betting lines agree with you, Scott. The Seattle Seahawks are at minus 1250. Next is the Raiders at plus 450. Cowboys at plus 650. Saints at plus 750. Bears at plus 900. And then your Jets at plus 2,500. A few other teams then. Little more.
Want to lay something on something? Lay it on the Jets.
How about Denver at plus 3,300?
Not happening.
Carolina at
what are they going to offer back?
Drew Lock?
Here, hold on, I got to say something, Ed. Here's the problem with a lot of people analyzing these trades. They look at where he fits on the other team. They're not looking at what the Seahawks are going to get back.
I get you. Carolina, he's at plus 3,300.
Not happening. What are they going to take, Teddy Bridgewater?
You could get that eighth pick overall and draft your next quarterback. New England plus 3,300. I agree. He's not going to New England.
I can't see it happen with Carolina for 8th pick.
No. You'd have to obviously give more than the 8th pick, but that would be the opportunity to draft your next quarterback if you were the Seahawks. Listen, we saw
they have to like somebody enough in that top tier. 8 is not the right spot.
All right. Fair enough. Now,
you want to lay something on it?
Where would you lay? Scott, if I gave you $10 to lay money down, where are you laying the money down?
The Jets.
The Jets at plus 2,500. There you go. That would be, as both of us sitting here in the New York area, you said it, the best quarterback the Jets have had since Joe Namath. Yeah. That would it wouldn't even be up for
They've never had a star quarterback. They've had good, like Testaverde and Pennington and Boomer. They've never had a star quarterback.
No.
The Dolphins have not had a good quarterback since Dan Marino retired.
Right. Yeah. They've never had a star. They've never. Russell Wilson would own New York City.
On the Dolphins.
Not even listed.
They should be. I would take the Dolphins instantly over the Panthers or the Broncos.
All right. Fair enough. It's got one little last bit of football I wanted to talk to you before we get to halftime here. NFL announces now a 17-game regular season schedule. It's going to cause some leagues, right? If you're a commissioner of a league, there's questions to be had. Do you extend the regular season one more week? Do you reconfigure the playoffs somehow? How do you view this 17-game schedule as it impacts fantasy leagues and the fantasy community?
Here's the question. Are they talking about an 18-week schedule or just cramming everything into 17 weeks?
I think there's just one bye week still, right? So 18 weeks, 17 games.
18 weeks. So to me, it's pretty simple. And as I review this more in depth, I'll have more insights coming up on more shows. To me, it's simple. You just back the fantasy playoffs back 1 week. Go from week 15 to 17, and then, you don't want to start guys in week 18. And I think it's great. I think it gives us another week of fantasy football. I'm not saying that this was top of the NFL's priority list, but I can't ignore really a lot of the decisions made by the NFL. I think they take fantasy in mind. When they get to the lower rungs, they go, hey, 2 in a bonus. Maybe one more week of fantasy football for people to be interested in. More TV ratings, more people playing, more interest, more revenue, etc. Another week of the red zone, whatever. They know that people are interested in fantasy. It's another week of gambling and wagering. It's another week of TV revenue. It makes so much sense. Fantasy-wise, it just makes a lot more sense. It gives us another week of fun. And I think it kind of like, when you talk about in pro leagues, like expanding the playoff bracket, this gives teams, a chance to fight deeper into the season. So I think it'll make it more competitive, more fun. If you use free agent budget, you'll just have to manage your budget a little bit more and make it more challenging. So I don't see anything but upside from this.
Yeah, so now what you're looking at ideally is instead of in most leagues your playoffs going to week 13, they'll now go to week 14, and your fantasy playoffs will be weeks 15, 16, championship weekend being week 17, and then week 18 being the final week of the season where you don't want to have to play anybody. I mean, but it's going to be interesting, Scott, to see how maybe some
another week of DFS.
There it is. Yes, that's what I love is the other week of DFS. But you know what? I think some leagues are going to get interesting with it. They may still end at 16. Maybe they add another round to the playoffs, or maybe they do something different at the back end for week 17, do an all-in type of pool, even for the teams that didn't get a playoff team. So it does allow a lot of creativity with commissioners and fantasy leagues to do something with that extra week and still be able to avoid the week 18. So in whatever way you do it, and I'd love to hear people share with us what they're thinking about that, how are you going to utilize this extra week? Or how are you going to reconfigure your league? Are you just going to extend the playoffs, extend the regular season, or are you going to do something creative with it? And I just think we're going to see a lot of fun things with it. And it allows guys like you, me, and everyday fantasy football players to do something interesting.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys, don't forget, head over to rotoballer.com. Check out everything there. Main page, premium package, expert chats, as well DFS or season-long football, basketball, baseball, MMA, esports, PGA, NASCAR, Scott Engel, Sean Engel covering us there at NASCAR each and every week. Sign up for whatever premium package you like using the promo code KING or the promo code ACES and get that MLB premium package before your draft. Okay, rankings, sortable draft sheets, sleepers, busts, the draft guide, you name it. Rotoballer.com's MLB premium package has it.
Yeah, and right now, for those of you waiting for us to talk fantasy baseball, I know it's like a movie, like it's kind of like a monster movie where you're waiting an hour for the monster to come out and it doesn't happen and they're building the plot. We're going to be talking lots of fantasy baseball next.
Right, and right after halftime, we're going to cover the second base position right here. This is the King in Pocket Aces, brought to you by Rotoballer.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of Rotoballer Radio's King and Pocket Aces show. Anthony Aniano, Scott Engel, getting to the past halftime, to the second half, getting ready to talk some fantasy baseball. But as you can see, I think I've upset Scott. Scott, what's the matter, my friend?
We went to halftime like we do every week. And at halftime, when things aren't going well, the coach chews out the player. You chewed me out at halftime, yelled at me, said, I need to pick up my game or you boot me out of here.
Hey, when you're labeled the king, there's a certain expectation, Scott. Okay? Be regal. Be royal. Be king-like. Pick it up, brother. That's all I'm saying.
I want to be traded.
2 first-round picks. Okay? I'll send
you. Trade me to Pierre Camus' podcast.
I'm sending you to the operating room with Kev Mesrani. Okay, 2 second-round picks to Kev. Kev will give me a hot take to be named later, and there we go. That's where you're going,
That's a lot of pressure to be traded to Kev's podcast. Yeah. I got to argue hot takes for an hour.
Guys, those are just some of the great shows, the great podcasts Rotoballer Radio provides. Make sure you check them out, as well as all of the work Scott and I do. But, guys, it's time to now talk fantasy baseball. Spring training games are underway. It's early March, spring right around the corner officially. Okay, and we look at the second base rankings over at rotoballer.com and their premium package. Okay, and there, Scott, there are 6 players in the top tier of second baseman. I don't have an argument with many of them. Ozzie Albies, DJ LeMahieu, Whit Merrifield, who I still think is a grossly underrated player by Major League Baseball and fantasy baseball standards. Cavan Biggio, the young kid with Toronto. Brandon Loew, a potential 30 home run hitter there in Tampa. My issue is with one of these players, and it's the second baseman with the Milwaukee Brewers, who they're going to be transitioning to first base after signing Colton Wong.
Question on all these guys. Right? Tell me, when you mention them, where you rank them.
I go LeMahieu 1. I disagree with Rotoballer rankings. I go LeMahieu 1. I go Albies 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's getting traded from Rotoballer.
I'm gonna go Merrifield 3. I'm gonna go Brandon Loew 4. I'm gonna go Biggio. Merrifield 3, Loew 4, Biggio 5, and then honestly, I'd have Jeff McNeil up here at that point. He's not in the tier 1, so we'll get to him in a few minutes. But right now, in that top tier, Rotoballer's number 4 is Keston Hiura of the Milwaukee Brewers. And Scott, you know me, and anybody who's seen any of the work I do at Rotoballer knows Keston Hiura is not my type of player, okay? You cannot strike out, okay, for a career 32% of the time. He hit 212 last year. Got on base less than 30% of the time. It was 297. Yes, he has some pop. I'm not denying that. But for him to be a top-tier player when he's striking out 30 to 35% of the time, Scott, he's a flawed player, and he's just not somebody I want to tie my team to as a tier 1 second baseman.
Yeah, the thing is, though, is that, we did see the batting average drop considerably, and the plate discipline was a real issue last year. But again, we talked about this last weekend about, these 60-game samples are not reflective of a full season. The best thing to do is prorate a guy over the past 2 seasons, which is really like a season and a third. I think the power is going to be there, and the speed's going to be there. In fact, he went yard in his first spring training game, so I think he's looking to get back on the right track. He's only 24 years old. He does strike out a lot. I don't think he's a 212 hitter. I don't think he's a 295 hitter. I think you're going to see the average rebound to the point where he could hit 270 plus. You'll get the power. You'll get the speed. I don't know if I have quite ranked number 4. He's definitely in my top 6. I see a bounce back year. The counting stats will always be there, I think. And look, some players, they blossom at the major league level, and he's still young. So I think there's still time for improvement, but this is not somebody I'm looking for to hit 290.
Yeah. So people have said to me, but Anthony, his rookie year, 2019, he hit 303. And I remind everybody, he hit to some real good luck. His batting average on balls in play in that 2019 84-game sample when he got called up, batting average on balls in play was 402. Okay, that's an astronomical number. Understand that, folks. Okay, so that leads to a 303. Last season, that batting average.
Big words.
Okay, that batting average in balls in play comes back to earth last year. It was 273. It's not terrible. Okay, that's an average batting average on balls in play. And what happens when that comes back to earth? That batting average plummets to 212. The isolated power took a huge hit, went down 70 points. Slugging percentage went down 160 points. Weighted runs created went down 53 points. It was an abysmal season. Abysmal season. Okay? And I understand the counting. He's going to hit 30 home runs. Yeah, okay, fine. I'll give him 30 home runs. But there is no guarantee you can tell me 275. You have a hard time selling me on 250. Okay? He is, to me, Roughneck Odor. Okay? Everybody loved Roughneck Odor for a year or two. He was 30 homers. He was double-digit steals. And then people realized, guess what? His batting average is just ruining my team. And that's what Keston Hiura has the ability to do. He's going to give you some pop, but he can ruin your team. And Scott, when you look at after him in the rankings, okay, Jeff McNeil is sitting there as second baseman 9. He's in tier 3 of Rotoballer's second base rankings, and that makes absolutely no sense to me because you're going to get 20 homers and you're going to get a 300 batting average and a guy who knows how to hit like a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah, I'm not as anti-Keston Hiura as you are. You know, maybe you were playing MLB The Show and you were Hiura and you got hit by a pitch or something like that. I don't know what your beef is with him.
He strikes out too much. Your job is to hit the ball and he can't do it.
I don't think he's as bad as he was last year, and I don't think he's as good as he was 2 years ago, batting average wise. I'm willing to meet somewhere in the middle. I think he's still young. I still think he can still improve as a hitter. He's still going to strike out a lot, but I think he can make enough contact and, you know, bounce back, place discipline wise enough to hit 270. You get 30 home runs. You get a nice amount of steals. I'm not passionate about it like you are. Where if you want to say to take McNeil over Hiura, I think it's crazy because I think McNeil is underrated. You look at McNeil though last year, a lot of the StatCast numbers were down. You know, everything from the hard hit rate to the launch angle to the XBA. The extra slugging, etc. You look at a lot of his StatCast, the home run to fly ball rate was cut about just in half. I think McNeil is better than that. You know, I love getting him in the 8th round when I can, because especially if I get guys with batting average concerns in the earlier rounds, I love getting McNeil like 8th and 9th round to help my batting average. I think the power comes naturally. I think when you see a healthy Andrew Benintendi, the power is going to come naturally. Some guys don't have to press for power, and I think Jeff McNeil is one of those players. I think it's going to come naturally where he can hit over 300 and he can get you a nice amount of home runs, you know, maybe 18, something like that. He'll hit for a better average than Hiura, but he won't give you as much pop and he won't give you as much speed. So you have to be at your point in the draft, if they're both available, and you can't pay attention to ADP and say, well, ADP dictates I'll take Hiura here.
Yes.
You say, what do I need more? Do I need the batting average or do I want the pop and the speed? If you want the batting average, you go with McNeil. If you want the pop and the speed, more guaranteed, you go with Hiura. So it's all about not looking, and I'm not saying you are, you know, because I don't want to get yelled at in post game.
No, you don't want to get yelled at post game.
You know, I think it's looking about not him in a vacuum and saying, okay, I don't want him because of this, this, and this. Saying, I'm either at this point in my draft or this point in my auction where I need these type of stats, and then you can decide who you're going to go for.
Yeah, and Scott makes a great point in that you want, you know, currently, if you're right, people love talking ADP, okay? And right now, ADP was Jeff McNeil's going about 3 rounds after Keston Hiura. Now, me personally, I won't take Keston Hiura where he's currently going. I'll wait it out. There are other second basemen, I think, later in the draft. I'm not risking the batting average. But Scott makes a great point is
I don't even look at the position. I'm just when I'm in my first
fill your stat.
I'm just looking for my stats.
Yes. And then that's where McNeil fills in. If you've drafted a team that you feel is low in power, well, then maybe you take a flyer on Keston. I still think you can find even more power later on at other positions. Okay, batting average is one of the trickier positions to find.
How much you going to find it with the speed, though? That's the thing, and that's why Hiura is valuable.
But we're not saying he's 30 stolen bases, right? All projections on FanGraph have Hiura sitting at about anywhere from 10 to 12 stolen bases. You can find 10 to 12 stolen bases, Scott. He's not a 30-30 candidate. Okay,
with that kind of pop.
10 stolen bases with that. No, but I don't need to find that. I could get 30 home runs there for someone else, and I could get a 15 stolen base guy, a Manny Margot 20 stolen base guy, 10, 15 rounds later. I agree what you're saying, but those two
I think Manny Margot is much less of a short thing with power.
You're absolutely right, but he's going to give me 15 more stolen bases, potentially, than Hiura.
We don't know what his batting average is going to be.
And we don't know what Keston's is going to be, right?
Now, Manny Margot 1 home run during the regular season last year and then 5 during the playoffs. We don't know. I like Manny Margot as a value. You get him way later. And I understand where you're putting him.
Value speed
I can understand why Keston Hiura goes where he is because you can get 30-15.
And my point is, I think you may not get 30-15, but you're going to get a more well-rounded 327-8 in stolen bases from other second basemen later in the draft who potentially are not going to hit 210. Okay? I'm having a hard time getting past 210.
Such as who?
At second base? I mean, if I wanted a second baseman who could give me a little bit of everything, okay, that's better or close to that. I mean, heck, I could take Dylan Moore, who was on pace for 15 home runs and 20 stolen bases last year with Seattle. I'm getting him significantly later.
We don't know what Dylan Moore.
We mentioned Jeff McNeil, who's going to give you close to 20 home runs, a ton of runs, and that 300 batting average.
No speed and less power.
Yeah, but
we don't know what
Scott, the difference between
Dylan Moore is all promise right now.
But you're talking about with Jeff McNeil potentially 100 more points on his batting average.
We're playing what's
100 more points. So I mean that's a huge difference.
So you're saying Keston Hiura is going to hit 220?
Potentially, if he keeps striking out 35% of the time.
I don't know if I quite agree with you.
All right.
I mean,
very hard to maintain a high batting average when you're hitting 35%
2 years ago, but I don't think he's quite a 220 hitter. He's 24. He's only going to get better.
We shall see. We shall see. We don't agree on that. That's for sure. Scott, what are your thoughts on? Let's move on now. Let's move on to Cavan Biggio, the young kid from Toronto. We know this Blue Jays team, a ton of offensive talent, young offensive talent. Biggio, another top-tier guy in these Roto-Baller rankings. Okay, they have him as a Tier 1, 5 overall. What is your take on Biggio?
It was very interesting because between Biggio and Hiura, really what's the difference? Except you might get more speed from Biggio and more pop from Hiura. That's a kid who's probably going to hit 240, 250. Doesn't show me any signs that the batting average is going to necessarily get better or the on-base percentage, but, there are some natural skills there. I found it very interesting on our Sirius XM show on Saturday mornings when we had a beat writer come on from Toronto, and he said everybody's draftable where they're going right now. I'm paraphrasing. You want a piece of this Toronto lineup wherever you can get it, except for Biggio. He felt Biggio was overrated, and he's not going to get any better than what we've seen so far.
Interesting. Now, Biggio does have the benefit in an on-base percentage league of knowing how to draw a walk. Okay, yeah. This is a 375 on-base percentage. Last year, 364 in 2019. For his career, he's a 16% walk rate to a 26.5% K rate. So it's a significantly better walk rate and a better strikeout rate than our friend Keston. Okay, a little bit of pop. All the projections on Fangraph have him at about 20 home runs and somewhere between 13 and 17 stolen bases. So a little bit of pop, some decent speed. Batting average, Scott said it's going to be an issue, 240. But if you're in a league that doesn't use batting average, that uses on-base percentage, this is a career 368 on-base percentage guy. So don't underestimate the ability by Biggio to take a walk. He knows how to work a count. Okay, I'll sign up for anybody who walks 16% of the time. He's not just up there hacking. All right. Another power.
He does have a high strikeout rate,
not Keston. It's not over 30%. It's not over 30%.
That's why he's ranked a little higher.
There you go. Well, what about Brandon Loew then, Scott? Okay, right. Brandon Loew shows the potential to hit 30 home runs.
Before you move on to Loew, though, when you look at some of the StatCast factors from him, from
Biggio,
the exit velocity doesn't thrill me. It was only 87.4. The barrels went down a little bit last year. The hard hit rate went down a little bit considerably. So, but then again, it was a 60-game sample.
Right. All right, so now we keep talking about power at the second base position, and then you have Brandon Loew of Tampa Bay. who in half a season in 2019, in 82 games essentially, he hit 17 home runs, hit 270. Again, though, struck out a ridiculous 35% of the time. That was in 2019. Last season in 2020, the power was even better. 14 home runs in 56 games. Batting average sat at 269. Okay, strikeout percentage dropped by almost 10%, down to about 26%. It went down about 9%. There are things I like. The walk rate went up from 2019 to 2020. The K rate went down significantly from 2019 to 2020. That's the kind of growth you want to see in a young player. Okay, isolated power went up. Weighted run created plus went up. Power and run production all were on a trend to go up if you spread it out over a full season. Scott, Brandon Loew, another tier 1 second baseman on Rotoballer's rankings.
Yeah, the Brandon Loew last year, changed his launch angle just a little bit, went from 19.2 to 18.1. The exit velocity dipped a little bit, but still pretty good at 89.8. But he was able to barrel up the ball more, went from a 14.1 to a 17.5 barrel percentage. And then we saw the hard hit rate actually go down a little bit. So I think, a little bit of tweak in his swing, helped things there. But can we project those kind of numbers over a full season? I don't think so. Even though the home run to fly ball rate was just up slightly from the year before, it went from 18 to 21.8. But I don't think you can project him to be hitting 40 homers in a year. That said, what kind of batting average you're going to get? I've heard him described as like a one category kind of player where if you're really looking for that sort of power, he only had a 309 BABIP. So I think he can. I think when you look at him over the full year, he can probably hit say 255 with about 30 homers. Again, it's what are you looking for at that point in your draft? If you need a power guy at second base, Brandon Loew fits the bill. He's not going to help your average very much if you're playing in a batting average league. OBP wise, he's mediocre. Last year he was 362, but more in line with what I think you'll see about 330, 340. But look, you know what you get with Brandon Loew. You're going to get the run production.
Yeah, you're going to get run production. Hard hit rate for his career is better than almost any of the other second basemen we've mentioned. Career, it's almost at 45% of the time when he hits the ball, he's hitting it hard. So that leads to that power. Okay, he's less strikeout based on last year with similar power production as Keston. Okay, batting average sits at 250 or so, potentially. Could be a little bit better than Keston. Scott thinks Keston's will be a little bit higher. I guess that's why they play the game. Okay. Scott, some other second base.
By the way, Keston never hit below 270 in the minors.
Yeah, it's having a hard time hitting major league pitching on a consistent basis. That's what that tells me.
He's just 24 years old. You give him a chance.
Okay, sounds good. He can have his chance on another 300. Team. He can have his chance on another team this year. He won't have it on mine. Now, speaking of chances.
Wow, the Keston Hiura hate.
There it is. It's just not my type of player. Anybody who knows me.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not overly passionate about the guy myself.
You are. You're defending him like what I'm saying is, child.
What I'm saying is you hate him like poison. I think he's all right.
All right. We shall see. He's
not on any of my teams though yet.
No, he's not on any of mine yet either. What about Jose Altuve, Scott? I mean, it wasn't too long ago. Altuve was the consensus top second baseman in drafts. It seems like the knee issues have kind of sapped the speed from him, right? What are your expectations of Altuve now in Houston?
Not any more speed, that's for sure.
Right.
But at 31 years old, he can. I think he can still turn it around. I think the Astros expect him to turn around, and maybe one of those guys that you can give a mulligan for what happened last year. The batting average last year, 219, was disgusting. But, when you look at a BABIP of 250, I think you have to expect some correction. The strikeout rate was up to 18.6. The isolated power got almost cut in half, though, which was very disturbing. But I just, you look at some of these numbers, and I say, it's a 60-game sample. The launch angle stayed about the same from 9.7 to 9.3. But he was barreling up the ball just a lot less, 7.8 to 4.6. The hard hit rate stayed about the same. The exit velocity was down ever this little a bit. Altuve's short, and so was his dip and exit velocity was tiny. So you have to look at, I've heard a lot of fantasy analysts say this, and it's true. Do you say the numbers went away, or do you say the skills went away? The skills don't go away, even though the numbers may go in a certain direction. So I think the skills will come back to the point where you see what you would get in 2019. So maybe you get them as a little bit of a discount.
Can we expect 30? No, I can't expect 30. I still think
he can hit like 280 with 25 homers.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. 280, 23, 25 home runs. He's not hitting 31 again like he hit 219.
Still well inside the top 10 at the position, I think.
Okay, fair enough. He's not going to steal for you, though. He's not that guy that he was a few years ago for the Houston Astros. The knee injury kind of sapped the strength from there. All right. Scott, let's slide over now and let's talk a little bit of NBA with just a few minutes left here. Cover the NBA waiver wire, which you do so well. Did you get another win last week, Scott?
Yeah, I'm on a tear. I started off 2-6, and now I'm 13-7.
Wow, that's an impressive run. And Scott,
by the way, these players we mentioned are not just for the waiver wire. In case you don't only have weekly moves, if you got daily moves, you got to look. But these are also good DFS plays as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Emmanuel Quickly, Scott, 25% roster.
Yeah, Quickly is a guy where people just look sometimes at the pure stats if they're not watching the Knicks, and they don't get the full impact of what he does or what his upside is. He has 5 25-point games this year, so you're looking at a floor of maybe about a dozen points a night and a ceiling of about double that in terms of points. And he's going to hit a few threes. He'll get a few assists, and he's only 25% rostered in Yahoo leagues. The Knicks are becoming a good place because of some injuries. You see Elfrid Payton out. Derrick Rose is worth the pickup as he's now in the starting lineup, and he can give you about 14 to 16 points a night with maybe about 5-6 assists. And then with injuries at center, they have Mitchell Robinson out. And now Taj Gibson is also down. So Nerlens Noel is playing a lot of minutes. And for you NBA historians, Marvin Webster would like this guy. He is a real rim protector. He's not going to get you a lot of points, but he's going to get some rebounds, and he's definitely going to give you some block shots. So, the Knicks are impressive. This is the deepest they've been in the playoff race. Right now, they're fourth as we record this. That's the best they've been in, I think, about 9 years this deep in the season. And Tom Thibodeau's done a nice job and made this team more of a fantasy resource.
Yeah, absolutely. They're playing outstanding ball of late. Scott, Jalen Brunson, 25% roster.
Yeah, 47 points in his last 3 games. You don't hear much about the Mavericks outside of Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, but he's become a really nice complementary piece. Good streamer if you're playing with daily moves, and always viable, I think, on the DFS targets.
Patrick Williams, 22% rostered, Scott.
Yeah, the Chicago Bulls they've been kind of like the Knicks in a way, where I think they've done a really nice job of exceeding some expectations. Patrick Williams can really fill in well for you at 22% rostered. A recent run before his last game, he fizzled out a little bit, but he had a recent run of 38 points and 22 rebounds in 3 games. The Bulls are giving him an opportunity, and more often than not, he's coming up with good outings. There is the danger of him flaming out 1 game a week or two, but I'm seeing about a dozen points and anywhere from 6 to 10 rebounds a night.
Bruce Brown, Scott, 19% rostered.
Yeah, right now with Kevin Durant out and Kyrie Irving getting rested for the Brooklyn Nets here and there, they've had to have some other players step out. I don't know how much he's going to contribute after the All-Star break for this. We have to wait and see when Durant comes back. A lot of the exterior scoring outside of Irving and Harden is going to go away. But his last 4 games, as we record this, 75 points and 25 rebounds in his last 4 games. I've picked him up in my league with daily moves, and I pretty much have been having him in there regularly about the last week and a half. A lot of these guys are temporary, not quickly, not Williams, but some of these players are temporary. Where you stick them in, you have an injury or you have a need, or if you have daily moves, you're playing DFS, and they can serve you pretty well.
Isaac Okoro, Scott.
Yeah, Isaac Okoro, I've had my eye on since early in the season, and he's starting to come on recently. I'm waiting to see if we're going to have the consistency. And, he's not highly rostered, less than 15% right now, but 25 points and 10 rebounds in his last 2 games. There's some opportunities for him to step up in the front court there. And, somebody at least have to have him on your watch list if you don't pick him up.
Final player on the list here, Scott, Lonnie Walker, 12% rostered.
Yeah, the San Antonio Spurs are playing shorthanded. They're doing an impressive job of it, as much as anybody can. They had 4 games postponed, a 10-day layoff, and, they need other players to step up. They have Derek White out. They have Rudy Gay out, and some other prominent guys. So they need people to step up. And, Lonnie Walker's playing his way into the conversation to a point where when everybody comes back, he may still have a role. 29 points in his last 2 games. He sprinkle in some other peripheral stats, making him a little more worthy in 9 category leagues. Good DFS play when he's in there. But you got to check. We got the All-Star break coming up this week. Some teams have a limited amount of games. I had to cut Naz Reid because he has just 1 game this week, and I have to, because I have Mitchell Robinson and Yusuf Nurkic at center, and both of her hopes. I have to pick up Kelly Olynyk and pray that he's going to rebound.
Yeah.
So, right now it's very, very thin at center. You have to keep your eye on the Washington situation. See if anybody steps up there. If Mo is going to step up at all, he has 1 good game and then he doesn't. I'm looking at a guy I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel at center. So, if anybody wants to make me a trade for a center, I'm up for it.
There you go. All right, folks. You do. You rise above. That's what you've always been able to do. But we're just about out of time here. I want to thank everybody for spending the last hour or so with us here for the King and Pocket Aces, brought to you by rotoballer.com. We've said it a bunch of times. Head on over to the website. Sign up for the premium package. Check out the MLB Draft Guide. Promo code KING for Scott. Follow Scott on Twitter at Scott E. The King. Promo code ACES. Follow me on Twitter at Aniano Fantasy. Special thanks to Sean Engel producing this whole thing. And check out Sean's NASCAR work over there at rotoballer.com as well. Guys, it's been fun. We'll see you next week. Stay smart. Stay safe. This is the King and Pocket Aces show, rotoballer.com.
Don't yell at me after the show.